Well, viewers, I think it's time we started accounting Josh Lees to give or take some kind of responsibility for the riots that went on in Sydney over Monday night. The judge, I watched the High Court Supreme Court hearing, and the judge was pretty fair. He said, we'll meet you halfway. But it's obvious that Joshua Lees is leading a band of rebels and using Sydney as his platform, and it's really not in the spirit of Australians what he's doing and what he's trying to accomplish. He's lost control of his movement. He's put himself there as the leader, and now he has to give an account one way or another for the lack of you will never have control over an Arab movement. That just doesn't happen. He will be kicked to the curb when they're finished with him and his little sidekick. They're still screaming globalise the Intifada, they're still screaming from the river to the sea, and he can cordial that down as much as he likes. But for the educated, we know it's all anti-Semitism. It is all the annihilation of the Jews, Joshua Lees, and your crowd has shown what is going on and what you people are up to. It's why are you destroying Sydney? If it's about Palestine, why don't you go over to Palestine? You won't last. And try and work things out from there, because you're wrecking our country, you're destroying the spirit of our country, and we don't want nothing to do with it.
Let's bring you some more of that audio from the protests yesterday. This is a real test of leadership and hate speech laws. Yesterday, and there's been plenty of reporting on this, about the chants, the globalise the Intifada. Grace Tame is a former Australian of the Year. She has posted this next clip on her own social media, so she has no regrets about it. Let's just have a look. This is at a time where Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel, is in town to comfort the victims of the Bondi Beach massacre. Tanya Plibersek was asked about this by our reporter not that long ago. This is what she had to say.
We know some Australian states are pursuing that too. Grace Tame, should be stripped for Australian of the title, or is that way?
Look, I'm not going to comment on individual people and what they said. I wasn't there, but I would say about that phrase that's been used by a lot of different people to mean a lot of different things. At its heart, what it means is a single state. A single Palestinian state or a single Israeli state.
It means the annihilation of the Jews. I'm a professional theologian. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know Islam inside out. It means the annihilation of the Jews, and after that, the annihilation of everything else. These people are watering this down. There's no more excuses. This pro-Palestinian movement's out of control. They proved that last night. The politicians are running for cover, left, right and centre. A lot of them are involved in it, and they're being exposed. And Joshua Lees needs to give account.
That is a damaging and divisive message. Labor supports a two-state solution. We support a two-state solution.
And viewers, just for the record, there's no such thing as a two-state solution. Anybody that knows the history of Palestine, of Gaza and the land there, Israel exodus the Gaza Strip and gave it to Palestine. They took the graves and all the rest of it out of there. They left it. It was fertile. It was horticultural land. It was running what beautiful oceanside. And the Hamas government turned it into a terror state. with 700 kilometres of terror tunnels and all the rest of it, firing missiles and causing war and killing people, and intifada. They're saying globalise the intifada. They don't even know what it means. Intifada is an Arabic word that literally means shaking off or getting rid of or stamping on. And it's used to describe major Palestinian uprisings against what? Against Israel. Israeli rule and military occupation. The Israeli rule and military occupations only so far as they need to defend themselves against the harassment and terrorism of Hamas and Islamic ideology. The first Intifada was 1987 to 1993. It ran for 6 years. And the second Intifada was from 2000 to 2005, and it caused terror for 5 years. The first Intifada started largely as mass civil resistance, strikes, protests, boycotts, stone throwing and missile shooting, and later included armed activity, while the second Intifada quickly escalated into a far more lethal violence on both sides, including suicide bombings and other attacks. The suicide bombings, by the way, were not by the Israelis, and other attacks against Israel civilians, as well as Israeli military operations and heightened restrictions that caused large numbers of Palestinians' deaths and deepened mistrust. But the Palestinians brought it on itself. Hamas brought it on them. The Islamic ideology to annihilate the Jews. Today the term is also used more broadly as a political slogan for renewed resistance, for more of the above. But what people mean by it can range from non-violent protests to calls for armed struggle. It's not good enough. That's watered down at the end. It's full-on resistance, violent resistance, and suicide, murder activity, terrorism.
Recognised borders that provide safety and security for Israeli people and Palestinian people to live in peace side by side.
Viewers, she's talking waffle. That's happened over and over again, and the Palestinian Islamic group can't help but aggravate Israel by firing missiles, causing murders, bombing buses, blah, blah, blah.
Don't support slogans or chants or statements that suggest a single state, because a single state means pushing the other people out.
And when she's saying a single state, she's saying the annihilation of the Jews. Why doesn't she just say they want the annihilation of the Jews? They don't want any Jews. Islamic ideology in the Arab world, insofar as Hamas, ISIS and all the rest of it, want Israel destroyed.
Yeah, we'd like to hear from the Assistant Minister Jed Carney as well.
Okay, that's where we leave Tanya Plibersek there. That's just come in. She's described this phrase used by many people, and we saw it on placards as well at that protest yesterday, as damaging and divisive. And that's certainly what it was yesterday.
Good evening. First tonight to a protest underway right now that has brought part of the CBD to a standstill. These pictures just in show activists blocking Flinders Street outside the train station. The protesters are rallying against the state visit of Israel's president. There is a heavy police presence right across the city tonight. Straight to Christy Mayer, and Christy, Melburnians heading home are facing long delays.
How can that be legal, for goodness sake?
They are, Mitch. Pro-Palestine protesters say they hope to bring the entire country to a standstill tonight. And take a look behind me here. You can see the Melbourne CBD is absolutely gridlocked. Thousands of protesters have flooded the intersection here at Flinders Street Station. As you can see, speeches are still underway, and we understand the plan is to march from here. There is a very heavy police presence. Security has been ramped up right across town. We understand some of the buildings tonight are in lockdown. They're rallying against the arrival of Israel's President Isaac Herzog.
We have shut down the busiest intersection in Melbourne.
For what? Honestly, for Islamic ideology. It's going to come back to Biden, viewers. Don't you worry.
This is socially divisive beyond belief. I've never been more ashamed to be in this country.
Thank God somebody's got some rationale.
These protests are happening right across the country tonight. The focus is on Sydney, though, where Israel's president is starting his visit.
The first event on his first day, a visit to Bondi, President Isaac Herzog's top priority.
His Excellency, President of the State of Israel.
Arriving with First Lady Mikhail Herzog, met by the Premier, then laying wreaths to honour the 15 lives lost at the December 14 massacre.
And I'm here to express solidarity, friendship and love.
The small ceremony attended by Jewish community leaders and a handful of victims and family members. The First Lady visibly moved as they heard their stories and offered support.
And how are you healing?
The President telling them he and Israel stood with them against what he called the global emergency of anti-Semitism.
What you've got to understand is, viewers, these anti-Semitists, the pro-Hamas, ISIS supporters, they don't care about the Israelis at all. Yet it's the Israelis that are constantly antagonised, murdered, missiles, bombs, you name it, over in Israel. We haven't got any comprehension. These people don't, not these ones here, but the pro-Hamas mob, this lot, they don't understand. They just don't understand the lengths that the Arabs, the Islamic Arabs that are completely out of order, the radical ones will go to destroy. They've got no idea.
Anti-Semitism here in Australia is not a Jewish problem. It is an Australian problem and a global problem.
After performing the ritual of placing stones from Jerusalem, a symbol of the weight of loss, President Herzog addressed the media, calling his visit a chance to rebuild troubled relations between Australia and Israel.
I welcome the positive steps already taken by the Australian government to tackle anti-Semitism since the Bondi attack.
With helicopters overhead and snipers on nearby buildings, the President knows this visit is controversial, with Israel accused by a UN commission of genocide and the President of inciting it.
It's the wrong time, it's the wrong person, and he should not.
I have to say, this man's completely out of control himself. He has to be an Islamic ideologist, because to come out, Chris Sidoti, with this kind of rhetoric, again, it's divisive, it's hateful, and it's completely out of sync with the spirit of what Australia is trying to do for the Jewish people. They don't like the Jews.
Not be visiting.
But for the survivors and families today,
gives us a sense of pride, some strength, strength to heal, strength to get better.
It's really important. It shows solidarity with the Jewish people.
It was overwhelming. It was just a highly emotional thing.
It meant a tremendous amount to me, to my community, and particularly to the families of the dead.
But thousands are expected to rally this week, furious with a war that has cost over 70,000 Palestinian lives. The President's message to protesters:
these demonstrations, in most cases, what you hear and see, comes to undermine and delegitimize our right, my nation's right, of its mere existence.
Earlier, activists unfurled this banner opposite the Opera House today, reading "Herzog, war criminal." It was quickly removed, as elsewhere 3 protesters were cautioned and 1 was arrested. President Herzog's security is consuming enormous resources. 500 officers rostered today alone to look after him and to take care of those protests. It will be like this until he leaves. He has another day of Sydney engagements tomorrow before heading to Canberra Wednesday and Melbourne on Thursday.
To Dave Sharma. Dave, good to see you. Look, we'll get to the Liberal leadership in a minute, but I want to start with President Isaac Herzog's visit. We've seen these violent clashes on the streets of Sydney tonight. This is despite some 3,000 police being deployed. When the President reads the news and sees this sort of scenes, this is highly embarrassing, isn't it?
I think it's in incredibly poor taste. I think the protesters represent a small activist, extremist fringe of Australia. The President has come here, President Herzog has come here to pay his respects to those who died in the Bondi terrorist massacre of December, to comfort the families and to comfort the Jewish community. He's not coming with a message of ill will or malice to anyone, to any group of Australians. And the idea that someone who's coming with a good and noble intent in his heart like that should be greeted with these sorts of scenes, should be, you know, forced to have this huge security cordon put around him, I think is, you know, it's to our shame as a nation.
Yeah. And he does have a message on anti-Semitism as well for the Albanese government, which I expect he'll deliver in a respectful, diplomatic fashion. But his message is there and it is strong as well. You just heard it a little while ago in his interview that he did with me.
He did. He's got a very strong message. I mean, he rightly makes the point that anti-Semitism has been rising significantly in recent years, including in Australia and other Western nations, that in many respects, you know, the Bondi terrorist attack took place in a climate of heightened anti-Semitism that the government and the people and our institutions did not do enough to prevent and confront and deal with. And I hope that attitude is changing now, and I think he's brought an important message to us and to our nation to hold us to account, to make sure that something like Bondi doesn't happen again, that no religious community or any community in Australia is made to feel as unsafe and unwelcome as the Jewish community has had to endure these past 2.5 years.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Now, we saw, as we've been discussing, the coalition primary.
Now, Starlee Seggles is one of the people that believe in the protest. She's one of the people that believes in the protest, this woman.
I do quickly want to ask you about something else, given that you have been vocal in this area. So allow me, this was Grace Tame at the protest yesterday. We've heard Tanya Plibersek comment on it, but I just want to show you this clip quickly. Okay, so we have seen a lot of conflicting clips on social media. We've seen what some might view as a heavy-handed police response to Muslim prayers. We're about to show you the arrest of a young man that has gone viral on social media. But there's also this from Grace Tame, globalise the Intifada. What do you think about that?
Look, I think this situation was entirely foreseeable, and I do lay the blame squarely at the Prime Minister and in part to Chris Minns. We know emotions are high as a result of the terror attack to Bondi, the Hamas attack of October 7, but also the huge amount of civilians and innocent lives that have been killed in Gaza and Palestinian lives. So we know.
And that's the cause of war. Again, not a mention of Hamas. You can see the lips tightening. She's going to fight. Not a mention of Hamas. Not a mention of how they keep trying to annihilate Israel. That's what the Intifada is. That's what from the river to the sea is, Miss Steggles.
Oh,
but
tensions are high. Social cohesion.
Yeah, but given, you know, I live in Bondi, I've seen the Jewish community and their pain for Isaac Herzog, or whatever you feel about him. The victims of the Bondi terror attack wanted him here and they wanted his comfort. To hear then a former Australian of the Year lead chants of globalise the Intifada, that's what the Jewish community said was in part the reason that we're allowed to see these Islamic extremists do what they did in Bondi. Do you accept that?
I don't. I feel strongly, if I may finish, that this was entirely foreseeable that we would have unrest. It is essential that protesters respect the law. But in instances where you have police excessive force used, that also must be investigated. But this situation...
It wasn't excessive force. It was the restrictions given by the Supreme Court. The police made boundaries. Now, Starley Seggles is turning on the Australian government. These are politicians that we have that are supposed to be representing us. She's not representing us. She's representing the pro-Palestinian Islamic ideology.
Situation was entirely false. No, let me finish. Let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. Again.
She's in a corner. See, they're running out of excuses because the damage has been done now. They've been exposed as divisive, hateful, destructive, and in enmity. It's enmity. It's unreconcilable.
It is entirely foreseeable that Jewish Australians feel strongly and feel incredibly vulnerable in this situation. But Palestinian Australians are also feeling incredibly angry and hurt at the continued killing of innocent civilian lives. We cannot
see, this is again, hang on viewers. So let's just get this right. Civil loss in war is predictable as well, Miss Steggles. It's a predictable result of free, boring realities humans refuse to stop creating: violence, uncertainty, and proximity. Modern wars are fought in and around cities where civilians live. So even precision weapons still produce blast, shrapnel, fire, collapse, and secondary effects that don't politely stop at the edge of the combatant's body. Combatants also hide, move and operate among civilian infrastructure, which was what Hamas notoriously did, sometimes deliberately, well, in most cases deliberately. Intelligence is imperfect, targets are misidentified, weapons fail, and decisions get made fast under stress. Beyond direct killing, civilians die from indirect causes: hospitals overwhelmed, water and power knocked out, food supply disrupted, disease spreading, winter heat gone, roadblocks, and people unable to flee. Laws of war try to limit this through distinction. Don't target civilians. Proportionally, don't cause excessive civilian harm relative to the military advantage, and precautions reduce risk. But those rules can't erase the core problem. If you choose to solve politics with explosions, which is what Hamas continually tried to do to Israel, civilians will pay, even when nobody claims that that is the goal. Starley Seggles, you are completely uneducated on this subject.
I'm sorry, you cannot disconnect the actions of the State of Israel. Right. And President Herzog is the president of that state.
Grace Tame isn't a Palestinian Australian. She's an Australian of the year, Ali.
And Laura, we have freedom of speech in Australia. She is entitled to express her view. We also have hate speech laws now. I do not agree. We do. And those hate speech laws go to, if you are urging or encouraging...
Okay, so Starley Seggles is a radical fanatic. She's just proved it.
Encouraging harm to be brought upon Australians, that is what the hate speech is. I don't agree with what is being...
So hang on. The Intifada, that's an international assault, terrorist assault against the Jews. Murder the Jews, Miss Steggles. Oh, these people running the country, oh my God.
Chanted. But I also respect that this is a very complex issue. And this was... I think the Prime Minister bears the blame of this situation.
The Prime Minister, for once in his life, tried to bring unity between Israel and Australia.
Entirely foreseeable, and that's why I wrote to him, asking him to reconsider and to really clarify. It was entirely foreseeable, considering the last 2 years and the issues and the damage this has been to social cohesion, that events like last night were going to happen.
Okay, so viewers, it's highly foreseeable, but it's completely unjustifiable.
Globalise the Intifada. It's damaging and dangerous, is it not?
I don't dispute that it is damaging, but what I am really disappointed that at no point am I hearing anything in relation to what is to happen to the Palestinian people. We are seeing today the announcement that the Israeli government has further passed laws to legalise taking more land in the occupied territories. But you can't disconnect.
Okay, but
these
we live in
issues,
Australia.
Laura.
You are a Sydney MP, and we just saw 15 people murdered at Bondi Beach. Why isn't that the priority?
Yeah, because she's a radical.
Then why are we having the leader of a foreign state here causing social disruption and impacting our...
No, he is not causing the social disruption. Your mob is.
Social cohesion. If we are Australians first and foremost, inviting the head of another state that has highly foreseeable consequences on our social cohesion is something the Prime Minister should have taken much greater care in considering. Okay.
Viewers, here's shocking footage of one of the top police officers in New South Wales protecting his officers. This isn't Australian, viewers. This is something else. And Josh Lees has to give accountability. Death to the IDF. Incredible. For a lot of these people, it gives them something to do. They get noticed, you know. So it's turning into a riot. That's a riot, that's not a protest. Josh Lees, you're accountable, mate. So a lot of them are Arabs, a lot of them are Middle Eastern Arabs. There's Asian bloke there. Incredible. Remember, viewers, from the river to the sea is annihilation of the Jews. Disgraceful. Unbelievable. And they think it's great. They obviously have no idea of how the Middle East works. Now, these people were warned not to march. And divisive anti-Semitist Josh Lees needs to give an account for this. The police they've had enough of it. We've all had enough of it across the European world. The police were told to be tough on them. And as I said in another video, Jesus said, don't pray in public to get attention. What do the Muslims do? Right, what you've got to understand is the spirit behind all this is these guys. All right? This is the beast from the Middle East. You see, they're not supposed to be there, viewers. They are not supposed to be there. Now, this is really good justification for the Muslims and that to say, well, you know, it's all one-sided. But they were in an area that was restricted, and they've deliberately set themselves up there to get this reaction, and now they'll use it to their advantage. Jesus said, don't pray in public places to get attention. What do? They set themselves straight up in an area where they weren't supposed to. And now they're going to use it to advertise themselves. You got the hero in the front there. It's completely out of order. There's nothing... there is nothing in order about any of this. Really, there isn't. Go and pray in the synagogue. Pray in the synagogue. Right, that fixed that, and they've got to move on like everybody else. You can't use religion to overtake sociological laws. The state and the church are separate. You go somewhere else, guys. That didn't work. They're happy with themselves, actually. They got the attention they wanted. You know, just dropping down and praying doesn't give them some exemption, unfortunately. And there'll be more of that, I would say, because Australia's had enough. Absolutely had enough. The Muslims are trying to take over. They're not going to say that, but they are. Josh, you're responsible, buddy.
Right, I'm here with thousands of people being pushed down George Street towards Central Station. What we've seen tonight is an absolute outrage. We had thousands of people out for a peaceful protest to say no to genocide and no to Herzog's visit. And as
it was never going to be a peaceful protest. Kylie Stegall, or Senate MP Stegall, said it was never going to be peaceful.
Trying to disperse from the area outside Town Hall. The police had us kettled in on all sides, and then they started repeatedly charging people with horses and pepper spray, attacking and attacking. The riot police absolutely off the chain. They were yelling at us to disperse while having everyone kettled so no one could disperse. And as people left on every way, every side, they were just being charged by hundreds of riot police, pepper spraying everyone, women, old people, children, men, everyone. You can see the cops are...
And you see how divisive this man is. It's his protest. It turned into his riot. Take some accountability, Josh Lees.
Still running around absolutely everywhere, just attacking people. This is an absolute disgrace. This is the level of police violence they're willing to mete out to peaceful protesters who are just trying to stop a genocide, trying to say we should have the right to protest peacefully, and we were...
Did they leave their designated area? So regardless of what Josh Lee is saying, at least a fair few of the rioters did leave the designated area. He's saying they were just walking home, but that's a lie. Reporting on Monday, the 9th February 2026, Town Hall protest says police were trying to keep it as stationary assembly as possible, and then ordered the crowd to disperse, leave the planned protest site, but people didn't leave, which is when police moved in to clear pedestrian access and arrests followed. Separate reporting quotes police claiming speakers were inciting the crowd to march. The speakers were inciting the crowd to march. Now, Josh Lees ain't going to tell you that. He's not going to tell you the speakers were inciting the crowd to march. He needs to be accountable. Josh Leeds, you need to be accountable. With protesters chanting, "Let us march, we will march," and notes that some protesters spilled onto the streets and even onto the light rail tracks, stopping services, which is obviously not staying in the approved spot. Josh Lees, you're a liar.
Attacked by the police tonight. I don't know what the media are saying. Don't believe any of it. This was a peaceful protest attacked viciously by hundreds of riot police with chemical weapons and batons, and this is an absolute atrocity.
Completely thrown Justice Robinson right under the bus, and this guy is totally out of control. Josh Leeds, you need to give an account instead of just projecting and pushing away responsibility that should be on you for things that are happening in our cities because of your organisation.